she is running against Josh Brown for county commissioner in Central Kitsap. And what we'll do is we'll ask the questions, starting with Ben. We'll introduce ourselves as we go around. And Ben, you can start it off.
Okay, I'm glad to welcome. Okay, and, I'm going to ask the first question, and then Bill will introduce himself and ask the second question. What is the function of local government?
The function of local government is to do the specific needs of the people. It is to take care of our sheriff's department, our auditor, our assessor. There's a huge list of departments there. But I truly believe that the local government is supposed to provide for the specific needs of the people rather than the national or the state government preparing for those needs. So that's why I think that county government is important, and that's what their duty should be, is to concern themselves with the direct needs of the people.
Is there encroachment on the county's responsibilities by city or state?
Yes.
Are they being squeezed?
Yes. And outside agencies as well. Is that my next question? I want to make sure I'm not.
No, this was just throwing in.
Sure,
a
no, absolutely,
question
and
on
outside
that.
councils as well, people that are in elected bodies as well, yes.
Okay. Why do you want to be elected to this position, and what are your primary goals?
This is Bill Gilmore.
I'm sorry, Bill.
All right, nice to meet you. One more time, so the question was, I'm sorry.
Why do you want to be elected to this position, and what are your primary goals?
So I would like to be elected to this position for the reasons that you and I were just speaking about. I feel that the power has been delegated out to outside councils. It's been given away, handed to state and federal government when it should not be. I think that there is an extreme lack of accountability in our county, which is one of my major goals with which to change in our county, is to make things more clear and transparent. I also am concerned that our local budget is not sustainable, that it must be a sustainable budget in order to provide for the core functions that we have, that we need in this county to maintain. And then I'm also concerned about stimulating growth within the county, because I feel that has been greatly hindered with the current group, and in this economic downturn, that's a great disservice to our county, because there's fewer jobs and because there's fewer tax revenue with those fewer jobs.
Well, you're running against an incumbent. What is he doing wrong?
I have a problem with I think there's a lack of transparency in government right now. I'm very disturbed with the fact that much of our decisions are being made through the Puget Sound Regional Council, which is unelected. I'm very upset about that. I worked for Senator McCaslin in the state legislature. I see how state agencies and these bodies that are unelected take power from the businesses and from the local citizens, and really that is the most upsetting thing to me, is that should not be happening. There's no direct.
Is he a part of that?
Yes. He's the vice president on their transportation board, so yes.
Ah, okay.
A huge part of it. Actually, I've heard he's going to be elected president next year.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm Doris Carrender, and the question that I have is, what are the most critical issues facing our local government, specifically county government, today, and how would you contribute to the solution? And as just to expand on it a little bit, I was reading about some of the things that the county commission has been doing that sound to me like I have a hard time understanding how they're part of the core functions of the county government. And so if you can address some of that. For instance, I'm not sure if actually paying for or somehow supporting a new YMCA here in Silverdale, and a shelter for women with children, which I have nothing against them having shelter, but is the county government the right place to support that?
Okay, well, my main concern with that is that we do need to have a sustainable budget, and what's happening, I think part of the question was what main priorities do I plan to change. The budget is concerning to me, and you brought up the YMCA. I think that it's a great project. What concerns me is that we promised $1 million that we did not have to that project. There's a lot of projects like that, and if we don't have the money, if we are siphoning off money that was designated to go into the Veterans Fund, and yet somehow we manage to find $1 million to give to the YMCA, that's where we start to have our problems. Now, some of this money is grant money. But oftentimes the problems with the grant money is that you end up with financial obligations, which is the $1 million that we were, required to put in, or you end up with obligations that are detrimental to your freedoms. So it sometimes comes with both of those. You have to be able to explain to the citizens what those trade-offs are. If they want a YMCA, Wildcat Lake may be closed next summer. Your veterans may not get the funding that they need. These are things that if we can't create a decent revenue stream in this county, we can't provide for even our most basic services, much less the YMCA and these women's shelters. And so really, the economic growth and the sustainable budget are somewhat tied, because I truly believe that the county is stifling their revenue growth because of how they're treating, builders, people trying to create businesses, establish employees, things like that. So I think that those two are somewhat, connected, but I think having a sustainable budget is my number one priority.
Okay, you can, if you'd like, you walked right in, she just asked the last question,
Oh.
we're going on to
Wait,
if you wanna
wait a
introduce yourself.
second.
Okay,
Then I'll come in.
okay.
If
Jim.
if revenues increases become necessary, what would you recommend, or how would you handle it?
You're saying if revenues increase and we have a
Well,
ton of money, what would I
yeah.
do with it?
Yeah, if they become necessary, really truly necessary.
If
Revenue increases, like higher taxes.
Right, okay, and that has been discussed, actually. Last week, there was an article in the newspaper about increases in taxes. I think that is a huge mistake right now. It is not on the table for me. People are losing their homes. There cannot be an increase in taxes right now. What needs to happen is the county needs to go through on a series of levels and find out where they're spending money that they should not be spending it. They also need to find out where they are harming revenue generators, that would increase the economy. Some little things that I'm concerned about is how much property is being bought that is being taken off the tax rolls, how many lots are non-conforming, and because they're non-conforming are not generating property tax revenue. There's things like that that go on, where we are actually denying ourselves revenue as a county because we're so anti-growth. And so that's how I think we should fix it rather than raising taxes.
Thanks.
Okay, what would you like to see done to improve the climate for business in our area?
Streamlining the permitting process is number one. The Department of Community Development needs to be held directly to the laws that are on the books. It should not be an ideological agenda that individual planners have. It should be very specific, and if it was very specific, it would be streamlined, because it wouldn't be that we had to put these permits through processes that weren't relating to that specific permit. I know, at James Lumber, they were actually telling me about a deck package that they had, where there's no one working because the deck package is still sitting there. It's been 3 or 4 months. He didn't sell the deck package. So now you have 2 people right there already, and the people that wanted the deck don't have a deck. Now that's a small scale issue, but when you're dealing with large scale projects, what ends up is the developer pulls out. He's not going to do it anymore, or he loses revenue. He can't hire employees. These are things that, even though they seem small sometimes, are huge issues. Something else, I think we need to get off the arrogance that is in the county. They need to start asking the small business owners and the workers what they need and trying to provide those things. And until they do that, if they continue to be on an anti-growth high horse, they're not going to be able to provide what the business owners need. That's I think, the big issue.
Attitude adjustments.
Yes, that's it, yes.
What do you feel the county's role is in protecting private property rights?
The county's role.
The county's role is that when mandates come down from the state and federal government, and they do, we have to be willing to stand up for our citizens. And this is something that I addressed briefly with the Puget Sound Regional Council. The state and the federal government are going to mandate that we have to meet certain standards. What has to happen at the local level, whether those standards are extreme or very simple, we have to fight for the property rights that our citizens deserve in the first place. But secondly, a lot of these mandates, if they were enacted in the very least restrictive form, we would be fine. The problem is that our local government is actually going further when they get into these groups like the Puget Sound Regional Council, and it's making it more difficult rather than less difficult to develop your property. So you may be able to go to some other county and develop it fine, but here it's more difficult than what the state would require. So I think we need to get back to local control rather than outside agencies that are not listening to us, and the individual officials must stand up for their constituents.